Welcome back. We need to have a serious, unfiltered conversation about the absolute state of Prince Harry. Watching this clip from GB News isn't just watching a court case, it's watching the slow-motion car crash of a man who traded British dignity for Californian psychobabble. We're witnessing a duke who seems to hate the very institution that gave him the platform to whine in the first place. It's the classic modern tragedy, a man born with everything, convinced by his handlers that he has nothing. Let's dive into this panel discussion because, frankly, some of the excuses being made for this behaviour are laughable.
Prince Harry nearly broke down in tears in court today, weeping about Meghan Markle's misery. And he was told to stop arguing back by the judge. Well, Prince Harry was giving evidence in his privacy claim against the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday in the High Court today. Now, we aren't allowed to record inside court, so we've decided to take the liberty of hiring a Prince Harry lookalike to reenact the key bits of the case for you. It's honestly, I promise you, it's going to be like you're in the room, right? Here he is, clarifying how the court should address him.
How would you like to be addressed, Your Royal Highness?
Same as last time.
And how was that?
I can't remember.
Prince Harry.
OK, so we got off to a flying start, literally not being able to even remember how the court wanted to address him. But anyway, then he was asked about whether or not it was his friends who'd actually been leaking stories about him. Just before we go to this clip, this is a really important thing because obviously, you know, there's allegations flying around which are denied about things like phone hacking and all of that stuff, OK? And one of the contentions is that actually he just had a set of very leaky mates who were using him to sell stories to the press and make a bit of cash. Here's what he had to say.
When did you become aware that your friend circles were leaky?
My social circles were not leaky. I want to make that absolutely clear. If I became suspicious of someone, I would have to cut contact with this person.
OK, so that's what he says. And he spoke about how bad his life was, being followed 24/7 by the press.
If someone was dating me, they might assume that they would be photographed coming out of a restaurant or a concert, but you would never expect to experience full-blown harassment. Whenever I got on a plane or in a car, I always expected I was being followed. I was under 24-hour surveillance. Because of my position as a member of the royal family, both my security team and I always had security concerns, even before I had arrived at a location. Because of how often the press knew about our every movement, sometimes hiding at a location before we even got there. The security risk was particularly great when we were abroad and could not always rely on police assistance.
Can't help but notice Prince Harry's developed a slight lisp over the years there, but anyway. And this is the bit where his bottom lip quivered as he spoke about the impact the media had on his poor wife, Meghan.
Since this litigation, it's only got worse, not better. It's fundamentally wrong to put us through this again when all we wanted was an apology and accountability. It's a horrible experience. They continue to come after me. They've made my wife's life an absolute misery, my lord.
Wow, the Oscar goes too, doesn't it? But there we go. Now, the trial is still ongoing and Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday, deny all the claims. But do you have sympathy for Harry, or in that case, Howie, or not?
This interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN and their New Year deal. New Year, new VPN. And a huge saving of up to 80% if you act now. You're busy planning how to get in shape, but the hackers are planning how to get into your accounts. ExpressVPN locks down your connection so you can start the year protecting your data. So scan the QR code or click the link in the description now.
Let's get the thoughts of my panel. The Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, pub landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Right, OK, so, Mark, where are you on this saga? You know, Prince Harry, of course, desperate for privacy, deciding to continue to pursue a court case?
Yeah, limited sympathy. I mean, I think on a human level, you've got to recognise he's gone through a lot of trauma. He can't cope with all of this. It's a nightmare for him. So on a human level, a modicum of sympathy. But I think he's doing himself absolutely no favours here. I'm afraid part and parcel of being a member of a royal family is that there is intense media interest in you. That's the bad luck of the draw when you've won the lottery on the other side of the draw, because you're obviously made for life if you're born into the royal family. And if he wanted to escape that, he should have done. You move somewhere, go very low profile, you know, that's just not for me. I'm abdicating all my responsibilities. I'm not going to be appearing on Oprah. I'm just going to, you know, do the gardening, make some jam and a few other things. But he's decided he wants the upside of the profile. And I'm afraid a free press, because I haven't yet heard any compelling evidence, be the court to decide, of illegal activity here. A free press is allowed to use all legal tools at its disposal to try and find out about people of public interest, and Prince Harry is one such person. Now, if there's any suggestion of illegal phone taps or something, that's a criminal offence. But if he were to win on the basis of the evidence I've heard, that will be a very chilling impact on a free press, that you sort of, it will become very blurry what line journalists can get up to and what they can cross. And I suspect, if you want my guess, I'm no lawyer, I suspect he's going to lose.
Well, it's interesting because then, of course, it becomes a question of who foots the tab for.
Yeah, quite. 38 million quid this is going to cost.
So supposedly this court case, is 38 million pounds.
Chunky amount of change, even for the royals.
Hold on a second. Let's pause right there on that figure. £38 million. Just let that sink in. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis, people are struggling to eat their homes, and we have a prince of the realm, well, a prince in name only at this point, burning through millions to fight a battle that essentially boils down to his bruised ego. Mark Littlewood talks about having a modicum of sympathy on a human level, but I have to push back on that hard. Where is the sympathy for the British public? Where is the respect for the institution that paid for his lifestyle for decades? The fundamental issue here isn't trauma, a word the left loves to weaponise to shut down criticism. The issue is entitlement. Harry wants the privacy of a private citizen while trading on the public profile of a royal. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot go on Oprah, release a tell-all Netflix documentary, write a book discussing your frozen todger, and then stand in a British court weeping about intrusion. It is the height of hypocrisy. He abdicated his responsibilities, he walked away. As Littlewood rightly pointed out, if you want out, you go make jam and do the gardening. You don't launch a crusade against the British free press from a mansion in Montecito. This is what happens when you strip away duty and replace it with a modern cult of the self. Harry represents a generation that believes their feelings are facts and that any criticism is abuse. He's doing himself no favours because the British public isn't stupid. We know the difference between a victim and a volunteer. He volunteered for the limelight when it suited his bank balance, and now he's crying foul because the press is doing its job. It's not just a legal loss he's facing, it's a total moral bankruptcy.
Now, in recent days, we've seen Brooklyn Beckham blow his family up for the sake of an American lady. And I can't help but wonder whether or not Prince Harry's doing something similar here. You know, the time that he got super emotional again there was about Meghan, talking about, you know, how you know, disastrous this had been for her, how the press had been awful towards her, and that's when his bottom lip quivered. I hope it's all worth it.
Right, let's remember, I speak to people in quite high-class circles within London that knew Meghan pre-getting married to Harry. They alleged that her intention was to come over to Britain and find a famous boyfriend, whether it be a footballer or someone very successful. She hit the jackpot. She hit the complete jackpot. But what she doesn't like is the downside to being a royal, the duties and the tradition. And for me, it's unforgivable what she's done to the royal family. When she didn't get her own way, she sought to destroy the family, and she nearly did. Now, Harry was very popular, cheeky young prince. I loved him growing up, but he suddenly turned into this woke-in chief of Britain, And, you know, most men look at him now as a pathetic man. Now, that's a bad thing to say when he's served his country.
Yeah.
I have the utmost respect for anyone that serves their country. But I don't know what happened to him.
No.
He's embarrassed himself and now he's playing the victim.
Oh.
No one should be spied on.
Well, this is
No
it.
one.
And look, one of the aspects that really confused me about some of the other evidence that Prince Harry gave in court today was he was asked, well, you weren't aware of a lot of these articles at the time, were you? And he said no, he wasn't aware of a lot of them at the time. Now, I imagine that's quite difficult to prove that you've suffered any real harm if you are openly admitting that you didn't know that loads of these articles had even been written about you.
I'd like to get a few things straight.
OK.
Firstly, Adam, what you say, talking to people in high-class circles, that is hearsay. That's not necessarily...
And that's what I just said,
No,
alleged,
Yes, exactly.
Nina.
So it's hearsay. So let's not take it as fact. Okay.
Right, that's why I said alleged.
OK, I understand that, but I'm just...
You tell your stories, I tell mine.
Okay?
Would you let me speak? The other thing is, it's interesting how men always blame the woman, and that I think is a real failing on men's part. Shows a lack of self-esteem on their part.
Unbelievable. Did you hear that? This is exactly the kind of gaslighting we have to deal with constantly. Nina Myskoff pulls the classic card: if you criticise Meghan Markle, it must be because you're a man with low self-esteem or you're a misogynist. It's the ultimate shield for bad behaviour. Adam Brooks is making a perfectly valid point based on what many people in London were saying at the time, that there was a calculation involved in Meghan's arrival. But instead of engaging with the argument, Nina dismisses it as hearsay and attacks Adam's character. This is the problem with the liberal defence of the Sussexes. They refuse to acknowledge agency. They paint Harry as this eternal child, a victim of the men in grey suits, and Meghan as a helpless damsel thrown to the wolves. It's insulting. Harry was popular because he was one of us. He was the cheeky chappie, the soldier. He served his country. We loved him for that. The turn against him didn't happen because the institution sacrificed him for Camilla. That is revisionist history. The public turned on him when he turned on his country. When you call your own people racist, when you trash your grandmother's legacy while she's in her final years, you don't get to play the victim card anymore. Nina tries to frame this as the royal family being hell-bent on destroying Harry to prop up William and Kate. That is absolute nonsense. Harry destroyed his own standing by embracing a woke, Americanised ideology that views British tradition as oppressive. He let himself become a puppet for a culture war that seeks to dismantle everything we hold dear. He isn't fighting for privacy, he's fighting to control the narrative because he can't handle the truth that he walked away from duty for fame and it's blowing up in his face.
Firstly, the whole reason that Harry has taken this on is because he has been very badly done by. He is one of the few people who could take them on. A, he has the money. B, he has the sort of the influence. He's no longer part of the royal family, so he can do this. This is the third case. He took a court case against them and won some of it. Last year, the son had to settle, which means they didn't want the dirty linen in public, so they gave him a heap of money, about £10 million, I think it was. That was the alleged amount of money. And now he's taken on the mail. What happened to Harry was that after Diana died, he was thrown under the bus in the media by the royal family, because the royal family and Charles were hell-bent on making sure that Camilla was going to be accepted by the royal family. It took years and years and years.
Why doesn't he really go after his family then? If that's the case, if someone wanted to sell stories on me or things along those lines, you know, if I would, I might live to regret this, but I would have, I hope anyway, the wits about me to think, if someone presented a member of the media with what they thought was a fantastic story about me that would sell papers, I think I'd have to be like, right, OK, but I'd be really angry with the person that gave it to me.
Yes, you could be really angry. But he was part of the institution, which is a massive organisation, very powerful. At that point, he was a teenager when all these stories started on him. So he was, for the sake of Camilla, he was sacrificed. Then he became very popular, as Adam says, rightly says. There was the Queen, and then there was Harry. And then after that, can I just finish? Well, after that, William and Kate were supposed to be the next in line, the golden couple. So when Meghan arrived, Harry and Meghan and that wonderful wedding and all of that, they were usurping their popularity. That could not be allowed to continue. And that is why the campaign against Meghan... You're not a journalist, you don't know. So the campaign
I don't
against...
pretend to be a journalist.
No,
just
I'm
for your
saying
guide.
I am a journalist and I know inside what happens and how these deals are done.
His beef there is with the rest of the royal family. Right? That he's been let down by his father or whatever. He's written this book about it. You can argue whether it was wise or not to put all that in the public domain, but that seems to me at least a legitimate strategy to call out the people who you think have wronged you. I don't understand why associated newspapers are not allowed to be campaigning journalists in order to expose and find out what's happening in the royal family.
Because the methods that they used were illegal and underhand.
That's what they're there to find out. That's what they're there to find out. Because
he spoke about his brother's manhood, for Christ's sake. This guy's not innocent in all this. He spoke about some very inappropriate things about his brother. So let's not let him play the victim.
If the Sun were doing it, if the News of the World were doing it, if the Mirror were doing it, you can bet your bottom dollar the Daily Mail.
Well,
they obviously deny it. I mean, the other thing to watch, of course, about Prince Harry is can he keep his temper in check? Because he was told to stop arguing back by the judge today. One of the last times he was in court, I think it was quite widely considered that he blew it a little bit by kind of flying off the handles somewhat. So will he be able to keep that in check again? We'll have to wait and see. But wanted to bring that to you. Anyway, right.
It's painful to watch, innit? To see a man who once had the respect of the entire armed forces reduce himself to quivering lips and courtroom theatrics. The panel's right about one thing. He is likely to lose, but he's already lost something much more valuable than a court case. He's lost the trust and affection of the British people. So, here's the question I want to leave you with today. At this point, considering the damage he continues to do to the Crown and the cost to the taxpayer in court time and security, is it time for Parliament to step in and strip Prince Harry of his titles and his citizenship once and for all? Let me know what you think.